Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships Legends this time. We're playing the console game, although it may be on PC rather soon. They've already released a Steam closed beta test thing, so you might actually be able to play this one on PC soon. And the reason you'd want to do that is they got some pretty interesting ships over here that we don't see on the PC game. For example, Wisconsin on PC is very good, but they've changed it over here, and I want to see how good it is on the console game. It gets unlimited reload boosters, and it retains Battlecruiser 2.0 Sigma guns. So Yamato gets instantly vaporized. In general, the console game I find to be more close range focused. There's a few less players. They're 9v9 matches. And typically, we don't have as much campy, long-range, HE spam, pre-kited at the beginning of the map meta on console. And for someone like me, I enjoy that quite a lot. It's not always going to work out as a closer range brawl, but for the most part, it is going to be closer range action. And since there's fewer ships, much like in ranked modes, you're rewarded massively for flanking and finding broadsides. And for Wisconsin especially, we need that. 406 is still not a lot of overmatch in this game, so we're looking for those broadsides, getting ourselves a very aggressive position here, trying to catch people off guard. Now, how did I get Wisconsin? If you're totally new to the concept of this World of Warships Legends game, and it looks interesting to you perhaps, they've got some pretty healthy monetization over on the console side of things, which is strange. I actually got this ship for 2,500 doubloons. It was essentially a dockyard. In this game, they run a dockyard once a month, and there's a premium ship at the end of it. And if you're just playing the game, you complete missions each week, you're going to get that one. You don't have to buy into it, of course, but then you don't get the ship at the end. It's a lot better than our monetization these days, okay? I just have to say it, man. It's insane to me that the console game is less predatory than the PC game these days. It's wild. Although that's not quite true when it comes to the commanders, which we'll get into towards the end of the video when I talk about the builds. For now, though, just know I'm running as much dispersion upgrades as I possibly can. Another thing you may find a little bit different over here is if you look at the tiers. This ship is actually a tier 8 somehow. How is that even possible? Well, Legends started out with only 7 tiers, and then they added a legendary tier, which is essentially our tier 10s on PC. And then later added tier 8 as a bit of a stopgap for a lot of tier 9 ships majority. So Wisconsin being essentially what is tier 9 power level means they had to nerf it a little bit. And first of all, that's going to be the reload. It's got a 36-second reload instead of a 30-second reload. And I noticed it is way less tanky compared to the PC version, thanks to not having that F key. We went over that in the earlier video this week on the PC Wisconsin. I love the ability to get my cool consumables back almost instantly with that ship. I can play so aggressive, I can use a strong heal and then almost instantly heal again. It's a little bit harder to farm up that buff in a brawl compared to, say, Valparaiso, but it's still an incredibly strong F key for both offensive and defensive play. So coming over to Legends and playing Wisconsin, I'll admit I was a little disappointed in the lack of tankiness with this one. So you got to play a little safer with that ship. So that's why we're going to back up just a little bit here. Hindenburg's pretty strong, as is that enemy Preußen. So I don't necessarily want to take a fair engagement. So we're going to try and go dark here. Our heals also have standard 80-second cooldowns here, which is understandable. But given the ship is known for having fast reloading consumables with that F key on PC, seems a little odd that it's not even buffed to, say, 60 seconds or something, let alone the 40 seconds on Massachusetts, Ohio, Vermont as well, at least on PC. Get a little trolled with shells go short problems. I don't know if that's an actual bug or not in the console version, but given that I think it's the same game engine, it could be a possibility there. You'll also notice from time to time I'm doing this zoom in, zoom out thing. I apologize if it's annoying, by the way, but this constant zoom in, zoom out activates the aim assist. I talk about aim assist a lot on PC, where the shells get pulled away from where you're actually aiming in an attempt to help you, but more often than not, it actually hurts you. In this game, if we do this quick zoom in, zoom out thing, essentially tapping binocular view a couple times, you'll notice that it pulls your aim reticle exactly to the point where the enemy ship's citadel will be. So it legitimately is an auto aim in this game. And it's very useful for guaranteeing, or mostly guaranteeing, that you're in line with a broadside ship citadel at these longer ranges. Using a controller is a little awkward, I gotta say. I'm so used to playing on a mouse and keyboard that aiming with controller is a little bit awkward. So having that aim assist as a crutch, I'm gonna make good use of that. Yamato on this game, not only vulnerable broadside, but also those cheek citadels, and we do manage to land one there. But he also got a citadel into us, which I was a little surprised at. Typically, Wisconsin has that below water citadel, and I believe it still does on this game. I kind of forgot to check exactly where the citadel is. The armor viewer is a little different in this one. It's a little harder to see things. But given that it's a little bit of plunging fire at these ranges, kind of makes sense, I suppose. Generally, I do want vulnerable broadsides, I gotta say. Notice I'm also popping my spotter plane anytime I'm taking a shot into broadside ships. That's important because this is a totally unique consumable to the console game. It gives you 10% better Sigma. So there's two different values, Sigma and Dispersion. Buffing your Dispersion is a pretty massive bonus, but buffing Sigma is really not something we're capable of doing on PC. And it's a little bit hard to understand here. They don't call it Sigma exactly, but they'll tell you you're buffing Dispersion or you're buffing shell grouping. And that shell grouping idea, I believe, okay, let me know if I'm wrong, Legends players, but I believe that is a buff to your Sigma parameter, which is the tendency of those shells to go towards the center of your dispersion ellipse. Unfortunately, we do go down here. I managed to avoid the ram, though. Always love to get into a brawl, but don't want it to end with a ram, of course. Over 200k damage in this one. Unfortunately, didn't get to extend the time on it by taking out both the Hindenburg and that Preußen. Zhao pops up at long range. Well, long range for this game. Notice our gun range is actually like 19 kilometers, 19 and a half kilometers with this build. Yeah, losing a lot of gun range too. Maybe that promotes closer range gameplay as well. Although Battleship guns still definitely hurt. Slow down and turn out to manage to avoid the enemy Yamato salvo too. So while I'm glad I got the Wisconsin on Legends, and I do think it's a rather strong ship, I don't think it's as overpowered. It's certainly not as good as the Wisconsin on PC is at its own tier. The other problem with being a tier 8 in this game is that you get pulled up into super ship games or legendary tier. It's a star, so I'm gonna call it super ship. Maybe I've already done that in this video. I apologize. Legendary tier, essentially tier 10. You're basically always pulled into an up tier. For whatever reason, the way this game works, anytime you're on an odd tier, so tier 7, tier 5, legendary tier, you're oftentimes top tier. Obviously, with the highest tier, you are going to be, but tier 7 often plays as top tier. Tier 5 often plays as top tier. So if you're thinking about playing this game, just know the even tiers, tier 4, tier 6, tier 8, kind of rough matchmaker-wise. You get pulled up into those up tiers quite often. And while Wisconsin is good as a pseudo tier 9 level, it still is lacking a lot when it comes to survivability that I enjoy Wisconsin on PC for. But I only paid 2,500 doubloons and of course had to spend a lot of time grinding it. Certainly is cheaper even than the Dockyards on PC, which I find quite interesting. And while it only runs for a month, if you're around for that month, the missions don't take too long to complete either. In fact, with Preußen, I was a little bit late and I blitzed the entire campaign in the final week that it was available. Now, that was heavily optimizing things, of course, but it's doable. They're not insane missions over here to get these ships. To be fair, though, to the PC developers, a lot of the content that shows up in Legends can just be directly copied over from PC. To be fair, right? That is understandably an advantage that the console devs have, that pumping out a lot of new content all the time is quite a bit easier when it's already been sort of prepared and you're just converting it over into this console game. But from a player's perspective, you're basically getting a 2,500 doubloon Dockyard every month to go for. So if you're playing the game, there's quite a bit of value in the new content being released in Legends, especially compared to PC. I think even next patch, they're having a double campaign where You get one ship for free at the end, and then you have to spend the 2,500 doubloons to get the other one. Something like that. I don't actually know. I haven't looked at their whole update system, but a lot of positive things coming out of the Legends team as far as player-focused, player-friendly monetization. The problem, though, is the commander system, in that you can just buy better commanders. And I'm not even kidding. Some of these buffs are crazy. For example, one of the inspirations I'm running, which I'll explain a little bit later, is for the special Scharnhorst commander from one of the Weeb collabs. It just can give me 4% better dispersion just because I have that commander. That buff is not available to a free-to-play player. That's a lot. And there's a whole bunch of other ways that you can buff your ship with this commander system. It's really cool from a creative build perspective. You don't have the samey builds on everything. There's a lot of different ways you can buff your ship, which I think is awesome. But it does lend itself towards a pay-to-win element, much more so than we see on PC. But back to positives with this commander system, you have the ability to swap your commander build anytime you want to. So any of the skills you're taking on your commander, you can just move them around anytime you want to without spending doubloons or elite commander XP. Pretty cool, right? That you can just play around with builds. You can also swap commanders in and out of any ship like you do on premiums on PC. You could just always be doing that on even tech tree standard ships without spending any doubloons or elite XP. There's a lot of really cool stuff about Legends that's so much better than the PC version, where you're getting nickel and dimed anytime you try and do anything, it feels like, on PC. Where here, yes, to get the better version, sometimes you do have to spend money. But to experiment, to play around with builds, to try something new, you actually don't have to worry about that at all, which I think is really cool. And you get presets for builds too. I've talked about that a little bit on PC, but what if you had multiple presets? There's actually up to 3 presets you can have available. It's a little bit less impactful since you just don't have to spend money to respec, but I suppose that is just a quality of life thing that they added this last update. But back to the Wisconsin, there's another change that we have to talk about, and that's you don't always have defensive fire. That's something that's really nice about the PC version of Wisconsin. You do have a D-fire, and with your F key giving that back sooner, you're a little bit scarier for carriers to go after. They can still kill you, obviously, but a little bit scarier. Here, we have to choose between main battery reload booster and defensive AA. Obviously, you're going to go with the reload booster, even though it has like a 3-minute cooldown. That's the gimmick here, so no D-fire available on this one. And that 3-minute cooldown, having it as a consumable is so nice for early game, where you just can activate a reload booster. But it's such a long cooldown that on PC, you're getting your F key back so much sooner than this reload booster comes back to you on this game. You only get a very limited amount of reload boosters. Even if you're using them instantly, it'd be what, like 4, maybe 5, probably 4 max in a game even. So is it really unlimited when you can only get like 4 anyway? I don't know. But here's the port. Notice again, we have ourselves that beautiful Independence Day port that we didn't get on PC for some reason. And onto our commander build. Look at some of these buffs. Shell damage, dispersion buffs on the commander, which stack with your upgrade modules. Extra heals here we're taking. And an upgrade that reduces fire damage, not by the time, but the amount it ticks for, which is more powerful than time-based. As well as if we get 3 fires lit on us while our damage control's on cooldown, it would get rid of them instantly. Shell grouping there, that's Sigma buff from the Angelo guy, and then Scharnhorst giving us 3.6 right now. It's not fully maxed out. And that stacks, by the way. So we can get a buff on the commander, we can get a buff on the inspiration, which is taking the base skill from other commanders. And then we're getting a Chili Potting Room mod 2, which I could upgrade to an epic version, which then after every 30k damage, it'd be another 2% every time after. It's like the special Dutch commander Conrad with his damage buff, but you don't have a cap on it of 3 maximum. The buffs here are wild, man. Maybe it's a little bit too insane, perhaps, if you're used to PC, but it's kind of fun to mess around with fully optimizing a certain element of a build. And the ability to play around with your builds, too. It's just so cool. The lack of reload here, the lack of a D-fire, the incredibly long reload on this reload booster consumable. it makes Wisconsin a little bit less good than we would think an unlimited reload booster Wisconsin would be. Oh, also you get like an enhanced secondary targeting. That's how you get better secondaries on the secondary ships. That spotter plane, by the way, that 10% better shell grouping. That's why we're running that. Eventually, I landed on a good strategy, which seems obvious now that I'm using it, but you use your reload booster alongside your spotter plane for better shell grouping, and you can get just many more salvos out of that spotter plane thanks to the reload booster. So if you pair them together, and they have a similar reload, it's pretty strong if you are using the Wisconsin here. But I think that's gonna about do it for the first Legends video in a long while. Look at those reflections, by the way, too, on the water. Stuff like this we just don't have on PC even. Is the console game the future? I don't know. We'll see. I'll be very curious to play this game on PC when they finally release it through Steam. Kind of seems weird that they're going to compete with themselves. I don't know. But for us players, I guess it gives us an option to select the better version, or whichever one we prefer on PC, which is really cool. Let me know what you think in the comments down below about covering some more Legends content. There's some unique, totally unique ships here that we could go over that is pretty fun, as well as slightly tweaked ships that we already see on PC, which is interesting to see those differences. But thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.